Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us on another health webinar. I am so excited that you are here. And of course, disclaimer, today we are going to be talking about, simple strategies for weight management or sustainable weight management, and primarily focusing on intermittent fasting. But disclaimer, these strategies are not intended for or to replace advice from your own doctor. So make sure you are seeking medical advice, talking to your doctor before making any changes in your healthcare. However, these are some best practices and healthy habits that can, really promote your own well-being. So thank you again for being here. All right. So, for those who are just joining us for the first time, I am Dr. Stephanie Chan. I am a pharmacist and director of well-being because I truly, truly care about supporting you on your health journey, where whatever that may look like and wherever you may be. I am a mom of two little ones, and I specialize in women's health and hormones. And I'm just here to provide some practical and science-backed methods to help you achieve a healthier life. Perfect. So today we are going to be diving into sustainable weight loss, and we are not just talking about yo-yo diets or dropping a quick 20 pounds within a month, but only for 25 pounds to gain to come back in the next few months. So I know some of you may be trying to lose weight for like a wedding or a vacation coming up, and there are certain strategies for that, but what we're here to do is to help you create sustainable weight loss. And this is going to help you just feel so much better in the long run for you to just have a much more like better quality of life as well. So, what is sustainable weight loss? Sustainable weight loss is achieving and maintaining a healthy weight that is not just about dieting. It's a lifelong balanced habit. It's using those strategies that I'm going to be talking about today. The clinical goal is to focus on strategies that support long-term weight management and overall health beyond temporary weight loss. And our approach is combining evidence-based methods for balanced nutrition, mindful eating, and sustainable habits. All right. So first, we before we dive into I'm sorry. Before we dive into intermittent fasting, we will be highlighting some of the foundations, and that is going to start with macronutrients. So, your protein that is so important for supporting muscle mass production, your metabolism. Healthy fats is not something that our body can make. So, we have to get it through our diet, and it is essential for hormone regulation and satiety. Carbohydrates. So choosing complex carbohydrates like whole grains and vegetables, so root vegetables like potatoes or sweet potatoes, it's going to help provide stable energy and blood sugar levels throughout the day. And we know how important blood sugar is for maintaining energy level as well as maintaining your weight. And when we think about all these three macronutrients, we think about your meal composition. So, balancing each meal with enough protein, healthy fats, and fiber rich carbohydrates um, and avoiding nutrient gaps to help prevent cravings and ensure lasting energy. So, what I like to tell patients and people in general is that you may have heard of the plate method. And what I like to recommend is reserving half of that plate for your vegetables. So, whether you like it steamed, grilled, air fried, however you like your green vegetables or a variety of vegetables, that's going to make up half of that plate of yours. A quarter of that plate is going to be your protein. A good way to measure without carrying a scale around is making sure that your protein is going to be at least the size of your palm. That is going to be a good serving of protein per meal. And then you're going to reserve the last quarter of your plate for those fiber rich carbohydrates, whether you are doing like quinoa, brown rice, or anything like that. That's all you really need to kind of sustain the energy or all the carbohydrates that you need in that meal. If that makes sense. Now, One mistake that I see people making when they are on a weight loss journey is cutting out a macronutrient. So, we've seen the carnivore diets or the keto diets or going really low carb, or on the flip side, people go really low fats. I grew up in the time frame where cholesterol, butter, fats was demonized, and uh, we can't survive and feel good without when we're eliminating a major macronutrient. So, if you want sustainable weight loss, I like to make sure that all three are in balance rather than cutting one out, because yes, I could go low carb or go keto for a whole month, but I'm sure that I will want some fruit, later down in life, or I know I'm going to be going to an event or a party where I will want a cupcake, um, or cookies and things like that, because that's the quality of life piece, which is why I don't like to eliminate or demonize any macronutrients, but rather finding a balance between the three. Oh, and I do apologize. On the screen, I think you may notice that there will be a question and answer at the end of this webinar. So make sure if you have questions to scan that QR code, and you could input your questions as we're going, and I'm going to address all your questions at the end. I apologize for not saying that sooner. As well as we would love for you to leave us some Trustpilot reviews if you've been with us and you really like, the results that you're seeing, and just feeling good on your health journey. We really, really appreciate, and we read all of your reviews. So anytime you get during this presentation, please leave your questions and a Trustpilot review for us, and we will greatly appreciate that. Okay, so let us resume. Let's get back into intermittent fasting and essentially what it is. So, what is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting is essentially periods of eating alternating with periods of fasting. Now, naturally, we are doing this because we go through all night without eating. And then in the morning time, we break that fast with breakfast, right? We break that fast. Um, and there is a lot of scientific data that backs this method as a tool for sustainable weight loss. There are metabolic benefits like regulating your insulin sensitivity. It promotes fat burning. One term you may or may not have heard is called autophagy. And essentially, what that is that the idea is when we're giving our body some time away from digesting food in general, then our cells are naturally programmed to go through this cell death process. And when we have an opportunity, the body kind of like cleans up itself. And that's what autophagy means. It kind of has that like self-cleaning process. And one of the benefits of intermittent fasting is that it promotes that process. It kind of like gives the body time to step away from digesting food, to go kind of like clean up the cells that are like damaged or broken down, and that's the whole process of autophagy as well. So there are definitely benefits behind intermittent fasting outside of just weight loss. For hormone balances, it's been shown to enhance growth hormone production, preserving muscle mass as well. And some best practices is just to begin with shorter fasting windows. So, like on the slide we mentioned, like 16:8, what that means is that you are fasting for a 16 hours and you are only eating for 8 hours of the day. That kind of makes up your 24 hours. Now, one mistake that I do see people doing, and I think why people see a lot of benefits with weight loss, is that they are ultimately eating less because they have a shorter eating window. But um, the whole idea really behind intermittent fasting is that like if your calorie goal is 2000 calories, you are really supposed to shoot and try to aim for that 2000 calories just within a shorter window, because we really need those calories to do everything else, to build the muscle, for digestion, um, for uh, detoxification. All of that requires a lot of energy. Things like breathing, thinking requires a lot of energy. And that is why you still get the benefits of weight loss or weight management, even though you are eating the same amount of calories. We run into issues when you have a 8-hour eating window and you're consistently eating 800 or 1,000 calories a day. The body is smart and it adapts. So what that means is that over time your body is going to get really really good at running on just 800 or 1,000 calories a day. So when you go on vacation, that's when we start seeing those yo-yo diet habits happening. When you go on vacation and you're eating closer to like 15 to 1,700 calories a day, the body is so good at running on 800 to 1,000 calories. We're going to think of those extra calories as storage. And that's when we might start holding on to fat as well. So if intermittent fasting is something that you're interested in, I would always recommend shooting for at least like your target calorie goal just in that shorter window, because the idea behind it is that that fasting window is when you're going to get all the benefits, even if you are eating the same amount of calories, if that makes sense. Send me a question in the Q&As if I kind of lost you there. Another way I like to think about intermittent fasting is think about having our like a fridge and freezer system. When our body is consistently eating throughout the day, we are filling that fridge. We are never tapping into the freezer to kind of like pull out the extra resources. And that's kind of like the fat on our body. So the idea of intermittent fasting is that when we give the body time to empty out the fridge, then we need extra resources. And that's when we could tap into the freezer and pull out resources from there too. So that's another way of explaining intermittent fasting and why it could be so beneficial in maintaining or like tapping into fat stores or just maintaining insulin balance in general. Okay. So when it comes to intermittent fasting, um, I I think of it as a tool. It's not something that you have to do every day. So what I like to recommend sometimes is that to maybe do it for like Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends you come out of intermittent fasting so that you're not stuck in. Some people feel really good, and it really comes down to your intermittent fasting window. 16-8, a lot of people could do for a really long time, but some people go a little extreme. Some people go like a 20-hour of fasting and only giving themselves 4 hours to eat. So this brings me back down to like who intermittent fasting really isn't for, those who need to be cautious. So women of reproductive years, if you are in a fasted state for a really long time, this could start affecting your cycle and your stress response. So just be cautious. And that's why I like using it as a tool where you're doing it for like a few days, getting those benefits, and then you go back to like a normal eating pattern, like a 12 hours fast, 12 hours eating window. Anyone who has a lot of active stress. So one of the benefits or why intermittent fasting like feels so good for people who want that like cognitive um, boost is because of that release in stress uh, hormones, cortisol. It is stressful in the body, which is pretty much like the downstream cascade of why intermittent fasting works with like reducing inflammation, because cortisol does that. It goes and helps with the inflammation piece as well. But if you have a lot of stress already, adding this extra stressor on the body is only going to backfire you in the long run. You may be able to get away with it in the short run, or in the short term, but if you are doing this in the long run, this may eventually backfire. So, again, take cautious if you know you have a lot of stress going on actively. Anyone with a history of an eating disorder. So again, it's that mindset, like, oh, the less I eat, the better. And like I mentioned before, a lot of people fall into that trap. Like, I only have 4 or 8 hours to eat. I'm only going to eat like one big meal, and then it's that like downward spiral again. Like, you're almost like binging, or that like binge mentality, when you tell yourself, I'm just going to eat in this window. So tread lightly if you know that this is you. If you've had a history of eating disorder, don't make this tool another excuse to kind of have those bad habits again. Anyone who is very sensitive to blood sugar balance. So, if you are diabetic or using insulin, this there's it definitely affects your blood sugar and your insulin levels. So, if you are on insulin or need a tight control of your blood sugar, that is definitely a time to talk to your doctor about it, because this can make your blood sugar levels drop way too low, or like just have a roller coaster effect on your blood sugar. So you definitely want to be careful when playing around with intermittent fasting. And then anyone with pre-existing thyroid conditions. So your thyroid is so, so sensitive to calories, carbohydrates. And if you are going a long period of time without eating, the thyroid is going to sense that as like a state of famine as well. And that's going to affect your metabolism, what the thyroid senses. It might start, doing weird things, and eventually it might start like underproducing, becoming underactive as well. So again, if you have any pre-existing thyroid conditions, definitely talk to your doctor. But again, like I mentioned, use it as a tool. Do it for a few days, get those benefits, and then kind of jump back onto a more regular routine. I see that working more sustainable for somebody, rather than like sticking to like a strict, fasting schedule every single day. So how do you break a fast as well? So if you are going 12, 16, 20 hours without a meal, I always recommend your first meal to be very, very protein rich, with those fiber rich carbohydrates and fats. Again, coming down to that balanced meal. We don't want to have like pancakes and waffles or a donut to kind of break our fast, because our blood sugar will go through the roof, since we are trying to regulate our insulin levels. And at the end of a fast, our insulin is usually on the lower end, because we haven't had anything to eat. So our body is like, oh, we don't need much insulin right now. So if our insulin is low and you have a donut to break that fast, it cannot keep up with the carbohydrates that you're eating. So definitely focus on protein rich breakfast or any meal that you're coming out of a fast. And what to look out for. So when you are just starting this, you are going to probably feel the lightheadedness from the low blood sugar. You might start feeling a little irritable or hangry because you are going a extended period of time without eating. You might start having a headache, digestive issues, or even sleep disturbances, because you are going to bed maybe on an empty stomach, depending on when your eating window is. So these are all very, very common. And a lot of the people who talk about how amazing intermittent fasting is probably went through that too. And it's not until their body starts getting acclimated that they start feeling good. So just expect it. If this is something you want to try, again, our best practice, what we recommend is starting slow. So see how your body responds with just like an 8 hour feeding window and 16-hour fast. And that may be all you need. You don't have to push your body further or anything like that. Um, all right. So to continue, we definitely don't want to forget the importance of hydration for healthy weight management. Staying hydrated is going to help with the appetite control. It's going to it's going to reduce your hunger cues because your belly, sometimes we forget that we're actually thirsty and not hungry. For digestive health, the hydration supports digestion and absorbing the nutrients that you're getting. I know that that's another highly requested topic, that um, with like nutrients and like some side effects of like fast weight loss is that we start seeing hair loss as well. And that definitely is with nutrient depletion or not absorbing your nutrients properly. And hydration and metabolism. So, proper intake maintains your metabolism and your metabolic function. So, for your hydration tips, we want to make sure you are aiming for half your body weight in ounces of water. So, if you were 150 pounds, aim for at least 75 ounces of water daily. And, broths, very hydrating fruits and vegetables count as well. So, like watermelon, cucumber, all those are great to add on top of your goal water intake. And I definitely cannot let you go without talking about sleep and stress because quality of sleep is so critical for hormone regulations like leptin and ghrelin, which is going to control your hunger signals. And if your body is prioritizing fat storage or fat burning, lack of sleep actually increases cravings and reduces energy expenditure. So if you've ever really paid attention to your body, I want you guys to pay attention. If you have a bad night's sleep, the next day, see what kind of food choices that you're making. Are you grabbing drive through? Are you really suddenly craving a burger and French fries for dinner time? Kind of start paying attention because personally, I've noticed if I have a bad night's rest, I am definitely more snacky, looking for like a chocolate or more like chips the following day. I've definitely noticed it myself, but I want you to pay attention and see if you notice a pattern as well. And aiming for 7 to 9 hours of optimal sleep is so important for your metabolic function. Now, chronic stress, so stress over a long period of time is also going to impact your cortisol, which essentially promotes fat storage. Being mindful, practicing mindfulness, whether this is 5 minutes of meditation or just having some sort of wind down process for yourself at the end of the day can be so like can impact your weight and you don't even think about it. So again, another challenge that I want to give you for this week, just to kind of have a 5 to 10 minute wind down bedtime routine and see how that impacts your following day and your weight as well. Okay, so mindful eating for long term success. Let's talk about what mindful eating even is, and that is to focus on eating, paying attention to your hunger cues, chewing your food thoroughly with each bite. And I personally am also so guilty of scrolling on my phone during meals, and that definitely disrupts how I'm digesting my food, how, just the hunger cue. Like I could be eating probably way more than my stomach is telling me because I am not paying attention to it. I am on my phone getting stimulated on what social media is telling me. So slowing down and chewing your food allows your brain to register fullness, and it's going to help promote your digestive fluids for proper nutrient absorption as well. Portion control as well. You can use a smaller plate if you have trouble with portion control. Personally, in my family, we do a lot of like family style when we're cooking. So getting all your portions on one plate instead of keep on refilling your plate could be another strategy if you are very similar to myself where you do a lot of family style and you're just going for seconds, kind of stick to a plate. I love that plate method that I told you in the beginning, to kind of keep portions regulated. All right. And then last but not least, in the tools that we are talking about for sustainable weight loss is physical activity. And out of all of them, this is probably going to be my favorite because the when you are building lean muscle mass, you are going to be so much more metabolically healthy because 1 pound of muscle is going to require much more or burn more energy than 1 pound of fat. And it is much denser. So the appearance of it is going to be much like smaller as well. Now, my favorite form of exercise is going to be strength training because that is where you're going to get the most benefits of building muscle mass. Cardio is going to be so good for your heart health as well as flexibility to improve your body's function in general and reducing the aches and pains that you might get when you're waking up from your night's rest as well. And of course, I always want to emphasize choose a activity that you enjoy. If it is pickleball, go play pickleball. It doesn't have to be tied to a gym. For strength training, you could start with your body weight, air squats, push ups, hanging on a TRX, like from your ceiling or your door. You could do so much with just your body weight that, just 5 to 10 minutes if you're not doing any of that right now, 5 to 10 minutes, I promise you, you're sending the right signal to your body to prioritize like preserving muscle mass and then burning fat tissue as well. Okay, so let's put it all together. And these are, the sustainable habits that we've talked about from the beginning. And it's going to be focusing on lifestyle changes that can be maintained in the long term. And that's going to include nutrient dense meals, hydration, exercise, stress, sleep. And tracking your progress can be such a great way of staying motivated. So, whether you are using a scale, and if you get triggered by the scale, you could do your energy levels. How are you feeling day to day now? Are you noticing that you are having less cravings? You are in a better mood. You're not having those irritability throughout the day because of feeling hangry. How is Do you notice like sleep improving? Do you notice that stress, you're managing it better? So those non-scale victories can be so motivating, but it really takes you as the person to be reflective. And this could be that part of that wind down process that I talked about as well. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes, really reflect and think about how your day went. How was your mood? Are you going to bed in a good mood because of these changes that you've been making? Like these things can be huge and long-term success. So prioritizing balance over perfection, consistency with small healthy habits, it's going to lead to the lasting results. And of course, our team here is to help you with that. Anytime you feel like you are slipping, you need extra support. That is what our community is for. And that brings us to our next slide. We are so proud of our community that we have built. You all are so supportive of one another. And if you have not yet joined our Facebook or Reddit community, I'm giving you this opportunity right now. Please, please do it. The community there is so great. Everyone's asking the right questions, supporting each other, and that's essentially why we have created Brello. Now, we are ready for Q&As. If you guys have any questions, I am happy to answer them. I know our team in the back is going to kind of have it pop up as we go. And again, if you would like to leave us a review on Trustpilot, we really, really appreciate it and we read all of them. We are truly doing this to help you all become healthier, and helping you answer any questions that you have along the way. Perfect. So, questions are coming in. Now, what would be a good beginner fasting schedule for someone who experiences symptoms of lightheadedness? Ideally, what hours would align with overnight sleep time? So, great question. And again, talk to your provider, but our bodies, we are actually a little bit more insulin sensitive in the evening time. And if you are going to bed hungry, you are 100% going to get disrupted sleep. So, for somebody who is in the beginner phase, I would say try if sleep is more critical for you, then push that window a little bit later, depending on when you're sleeping as well. So, I would say maybe a you could try eating between 12 and 8 p.m. and see how that works. Now, if you need to if you need the carbohydrates to think properly and you are a high performer at work, or you like to train in the morning times, then maybe you want to move that window up. Lightheadedness can it's ideally it would go away once you are consistent, because uh, because your body gets acclimated to it. That can really help is to look into um, supplements or options that won't break a fast. I know you might see some like electrolytes out there, or like a bone broth that really doesn't have like much in it. So there are a lot of strategies. Some people drink just coffee in the morning during that like fasting time to get them through. A little bit of cream, like a splash of cream, won't like essentially won't break your fast, but you just want to make sure you're not adding like sweeteners or anything like that. So there are some strategies that you could do, but ideally, lightheadedness is gonna go away. If it doesn't, maybe it's just not a good option for you. You can also just extend it, go from 12-hour eating window. So maybe eat from like 8 to 8 and then slowly push it back. Like the following week, do like 9 to 8. And then the following week, you could do 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and slowly kind of work your way to a uh, 8-hour eating window. I hope that helps. That usually, anytime you go slower and it gives the body time to adjust, that usually does do the trick. And again, when you are eating enough calories, especially like the day before, the idea is that like your calories are gonna like carry you to the next day. It's not like within 24 hours your calories expire and they like go somewhere, Like whatever you're eating in your eating window is gonna store for when your body needs it, which is gonna be during that fasting period. What if I am borderline diabetic? Can I do intermittent fasting? Absolutely. And I want to clarify that it's not that if you are diabetic you can't do it, but my caution is more like if you are on insulin already and you need to be in a tight like blood sugar range, then that's when you really need to be careful and monitoring your blood sugar throughout the day, adjusting your dose if you have to, keeping something on hand in case your blood sugar levels drop too low. The insulin users are kind of my main concern when I'm talking about diabetics. But if you are a borderline diabetic, type 2 diabetes, you're on oral medications for it, intermittent fasting is actually a very, very great tool in helping your body resensitize its insulin. So it kind of teaches the body again, like the whole why diabetes happen is our insulin kind of forgets how to do its job. It changes shape. It's not doing its job properly. And intermittent fasting can be a fantastic strategy to kind of resensitize, give the insulin, kind of teach it to do its job again. So definitely, if you are borderline, absolutely you can do it. Again, go slower just to see how your body responds. I don't recommend, binging for or like saying like I'm going to go all out this weekend and then on Monday I'm going to start like a 20-hour fasting for intermittent fasting. Can you address fasting while on appetite suppressing medication? I'm considering OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, but struggle to get enough calories. What are your thoughts on ADF? I'm not sure what AD is that. Alternate day fasting, I believe. Um, okay, so I think this is gonna, if you do not check off any of those things that I mentioned before that you need to be careful of with like that you have thyroid issues, history of eating disorder, or things like that. What I could tell you is that there's nothing, if you want to do 1 meal a day or alternate day fasting, that is complete. Like some people get great cognitive benefits from doing that. What I'm cautious about is that if you fall out of that, you just want to make sure that, how do I put this? The body, again, I've mentioned this, is going to be really smart and pick up on the habits that you're doing consistently. So if you are consistently eating 500 meals, or even if you get like 750 calories in that one meal that you are eating, the body is going to think that like I only need 750 calories to survive. So that like on the days, like I mentioned, when you're going on vacation, those, like you will see those effects a lot more. If you are really great, like if you're in a really good metabolic spot where you have good lean muscle mass, you're able to kind of bounce back between, the body knows like, oh, like your body, you're sending the body like, I require a lot of energy because I go to the gym, I have a lot of lean muscle mass, and you're able to kind of bounce in between, like from fasting or this lifestyle, and then I guess not like a normal lifestyle, then like you could certainly play around with it. For me personally, I don't think it's sustainable. And that's what we're talking about today. Like what strategies would be sustainable. And to me, that just doesn't seem sustainable to me, because you're too kind of like rigid or setting like rules for yourself. Alternate day fasting, again, just make sure that like fasting is a stressor on the body. So make sure you are checking off all the other boxes, as well. But that's a good question. I hope I got that. I got what you were asking. What with fasting, are you able to still have coffee or flavored waters? Yes. Coffee, yes. A lot of people like to do black coffee. I find that a splash of cream. So essentially, the whole idea is that we're not raising your blood sugar levels, and a splash of cream is more fat heavy, where it's not going to have like cause a insulin response, because there's no like minimal carbohydrates in it. So black coffee with a splash of cream, yes. I would also encourage you, if you don't already, and you are interested in tracking what you can do during your fasting period, is testing your blood sugar levels or using a continuous glucose monitor. So anything, you might have to experiment, because some people may, if they have a food sensitivity to like avocados, which is so high fat content but low carbohydrates, they might still see a high, insulin spike. Flavored waters, I would just be careful. Some, again, going back to like the sweeteners aspect, some people do respond to things like stevia or monk fruit, where scientifically we know that those things don't spike a insulin response, but some people can respond to it. But usually like seltzer water, and black coffee, or black coffee with a little bit of cream, is certainly safe during the fasting period. What amount of caloric intake constitutes a break in fast, or which items? So I wouldn't go off of calories. I think it really goes off of that insulin response. So If you think that like I guess what I'm getting at is that like if you wake up, I wouldn't say like because a cup of or half a cup of blueberries is only 50 calories that it won't break the fast. I would go more off of anything that kind of triggers that insulin response. So there's no like set point for caloric intake that constitutes as breaking a fast. I think it's more, I guess, like, yeah, I hope that answers your question. And I think fasting is very, very nuanced and it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. A lot of high performers, athletes use intermittent fasting for that cognitive benefit where they get that mental clarity from doing fasting. So that's why they're using it and not for the weight loss piece. But if you are specifically doing it for like weight loss or insulin, getting that insulin sensitivity back, then the choices would look a little bit different, if that makes sense. Is it recommended to fast for 24 plus hours? How would that affect not getting enough protein and fiber? So again, I do think that fasting for 24 hours, if you are doing it sporadically, it's absolutely fine. I know some people will do like a water fast or a fast like one weekend out of the whole month because they want those like autophagy benefits that I was talking about, where it's like the body's natural recycling system. So I don't think that doing it for just one day is harmful. But tread like again, this is something that you will have to play with. I think that is a great strategy, doing a 24-hour fast for to see how your body responds, or do it for like a weekend. Your body is smart. It's not going to adapt in that like short period of time. You might not feel very good during the first 24 hours or 36 hours, but certainly it's not going to like have long-term detrimental effects. Not getting enough protein and fiber, again, we want you to have like protein is going to be the main thing, but if you are going 24, 36, 48 hours without protein and fiber out of the month, you're not like your body is smarter than that. What I would recommend is making sure that you're eating plenty of protein and fiber leading up to that to the fasting period so that you have the reserve there. Um, but you're not going to start suddenly if you fast for 24 hours, you're not going to start suddenly like tearing down your muscles unless you are already in a caloric deficit and not eating enough protein prior to that. Good question. If weight loss meds cause sulfur burps, which foods can I eat to hit the half veggie protein plate ratio without triggering symptoms? So I really like, if you could stay away from like cruciferous vegetables. That's kind of where a lot of the sulfur is found in. So like the broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, stay away from those, and you could go more like the like cooking your like spinach, doing like zucchini, asparagus. Those are great options, much more easier to digest than like the cruciferous vegetables that are primarily the sulfur containing vegetables. Um, and one thing that I've also, we touched upon is that mindful eating piece. The more we are chewing our food, the less our gut has to do to break down the food. So even if you are eating broccoli, chewing it up very thoroughly means that like the stomach already has to do less work. So there's no like the broccoli is not going to sit in your stomach for longer, giving it more opportunity to kind of like come back up and cause that like gas to happen. But I love all like the dark leafy green vegetables. Zucchini, asparagus are among some of my favorite for vegetables. I break fast with coffee and protein powder. 2 hours later, I have high protein full breakfast. Thoughts because I'm losing slowly. Could this be effective? This might eat me. No, you are doing a fantastic job. And for all those who say like I'm losing weight slowly, and that is a good sign. That is a good sign that your body is like responding. We do not want to see drastic weight loss overnight because that sends our body into more of a stress response. So don't discredit yourself for losing weight slowly. And I'm curious to see what your window is. But I don't, if, I love that you're able to start your morning with some protein. I'm not sure if this is a full, oh, I break fast with coffee and, okay, so you are breaking your fast with like your protein powder. Yeah. So I am curious to see like what your window is, but yeah, I don't think that that is affecting your progress at all. I love your approach on doing that. I would just make sure that you are, considering that like you are breaking your fast and then you are having breakfast even later, to make sure that you are getting enough calories because the downstream effect of that would be like affecting your thyroid. We might start losing our hair with um, not getting enough calories as well. So 8 weeks, keep going, and you can always play around with your window and or like maybe going a couple of going longer some days and things like that. But I think that you're doing a really good job. What if I never feel hunger feelings? Ooh, good question. Now, if you are never feeling hungry, I want you to look at your cortisol. So our cortisol is going to blunt our appetite because our cortisol is what sends our fight or flight response, right? And during fight or flight, we are not thinking about food at all. So a lot of times when I see women struggling with stress or thyroid, they wake up and they're like, "Yeah, I just don't feel like eating," or like, "I'm not like motivated to eat." And that could be like, first of all, our cortisol is highest in the morning time, and it slowly tapers off in the evening, and that's when we go to bed. Because we need cortisol to be low. So, anytime that you are not hungry, I want you to look into your cortisol levels or take a step back and really look at your stress. It could be like a metabolic adaptation, like you've been skipping meals for a really long time. So you just don't feel hungry, or your body's like, like not getting the cues, or like they've been sending it and you're not responding to the cues. And again, that's that cortisol piece. So cortisol is huge for blunting hunger and appetite. And a lot of times with my patients, when I tell them like, hey, let's have you start, like, even if you're not hungry, I know you're not hungry, start with like a protein rich like snack in the morning rather than the full breakfast. And like over time they would start wake up getting their like hunger signal back again. So I do think a hunger signal, like not having a hunger cue, is not good unless you're just like constantly eating, obviously. But if you are going like 4 or 5 hours or like 5 hours, 6 hours, and you're not eating and you're not hungry, then like that's almost like, to me there's something else going on there. Because why, like, the only thing, like, one of the main things blocking it is that cortisol piece. Perfect. I'm going to see if there are any more, also any suggestions for those of us that work long hours. Thank you. So, yeah, great question. I think you could use that to your advantage. If you are, a nurse who work 10-hour shifts and you don't have time to eat, then maybe that could be a part of your fasting window because you know that you're not thinking about food, but then you really do have to make sure that you're making up for it on the other times. So long hours is tricky, but I do think that you could use it to your advantage and just making a schedule that works for you. So think about the times that are convenient for you to eat and not eat. So if, mornings you're usually in a rush, um, and you need to drop your kids off at school, you have to head to work, and then like you really won't get settled down until like 12 or 1 where you could take a lunch, then that's a great opportunity to do like a 1 to 8 or like 12 to 8 eating window. So I think that like that's just that's just going to be more looking at, you're taking a step back, seeing which hours make sense for you to eat and which hours make sense for you to um, essentially fast, and kind of work that with your life and schedule. Perfect. Male, 50, lost 102 pounds since June. Oh my goodness. Congratulations. You are stuck losing and gaining 2 pounds weekly. You walk 5 miles a day, eat protein, control portions. How can I start intermittent fasting today? So I would say, if you feel great, um, I would say when you wake up, I love that you're walking 5 miles a day. Do your morning walk on a fasted stomach, or on a like fasted, um, if that's possible. That way, that low steady state cardio is fantastic for tapping into the fat stores without further stressing out the body. So I would say fasted walk in the morning, you're 5 miles a day. And then wait till like push your since you're going to be doing your walk in the morning fasted, then like when you go home, you could wait depending on your hunger cues, hunger level. Sometimes if you like bring a cup of black coffee with you or with a little bit of cream, that could kind of hold off on the hunger if you have a strong hunger cue in the morning. And then wait for your first meal around like brunch to lunchtime, and you could start from there. But 102 pounds since June of 2024. That is incredible. And of course, do not sleep on resistance training. I know you're walking 5 miles a day. If that looks like, carrying a weighted vest, and you want to keep pushing the needle forward, instead of doing intermittent fasting, hey, let's make it a little bit more challenging. Let's increase your walk speed. Let's wear a weighted vest and challenge your body that way to kind of get the body moving again. It doesn't have to be intermittent fasting, but I like a fasted walk, pushing the meals a little bit later, and starting that way. I honestly think another thing I didn't really mention is that men can get away with fasting much better and easier than women can. Most of the studies done on intermittent fasting, if not all of them, are probably on men. Women bodies, especially those in reproductive years, is just so sensitive to the stress. So that's kind of why I don't recommend long-term fasting, but men can certainly get away with it much better doing a fast. So I would start the 8 hour feeding window and just push that first meal back, so you have a good meal before bed and that doesn't disrupt your sleep. Perfect. For a female who works 12-hour shifts, what do you recommend? Also have a family with kids, so how to do and not have family participate. Um, I'm gonna assume 12 hours is daytime shift. So I think very similar to the previous question, I like to like mealtime with family is it's huge, so I would like to reserve my eating window if I were to fast with family. So if breakfast is a meal that you guys always have together, then I would make sure that my eating window is during the breakfast time. If dinner is the time that like your whole family gets together, it's more social, you have that um bonding that comes with that meal, I would certainly save it for the evening time, depending 12-hour shifts, depending on what time you go to bed as well. So I would push that window later and probably try to go longer in the day. um, and have your first meal around that like lunchtime as well. How can I combat my evening snacky feeling or craving for sugar? High protein meal. So if you're, and I'm going to assume this after dinner, if you are eating, a lot of times we crave sugar, believe it or not, it's because we have low blood sugar. That is why our body is telling us we need sugar. So if you already know that you are eating low carb, which I know everyone tells us to, um, there will be times that like your blood sugar levels dip, and that's when these kind of like cravings come out. It's like your body's telling you we need energy, we need carbohydrates, and that's why we have this like urge to have sugar or chocolate and things like that. So I would say definitely prioritize a protein rich meal, and that's going to help curb a lot of cravings and this like urge for like snacky things later on in the day, because you're going to be so like full in a sense. So when we're thinking about our evening or dinner meals, like I mentioned, I know when I said the palm of your hand is the protein that you're supposed to be getting, that don't let that be the limit. You know, get a second serving of protein and cook your vegetables in butter for that healthy fat, because that's going to help you feel full, that you don't need to go for the snack drawer or in the pantry later on in the evening time. Um, and I'm a firm believer that and that's the thing. Like if you are having protein the size of your palm only 3 meals a day, you are not getting enough protein. If you're not having protein rich meals in between, then like that just means each of your meals you're looking for like a much larger serving of protein. So lean on protein and healthy fats for that dinner meal. And let us know in the community if that kind of changes your cravings, what you've found, what you've noticed doing that for like a week straight. What time frame is too long to fast? When do the consequences outweigh the benefits? Great question. And this is going to be so individualized. I personally think that for women, I I would say pre-menopause women, so anywhere from like perimenopause and reproductive years, I would say like 16-8 is kind of where I don't like to recommend going past. But everyone is going to be so individualized. Some people are going to be way more sensitive to than others. Um, and for me, I don't, again, I want to reiterate, I don't think that fasting for, 1 or 2 days, even a week, is going to be truly like detrimental to our bodies, because as humans, we've gone through periods of, our like hunter and gatherer phase, right? There would be times that we go without food. And that's kind of this like intermittent fasting is very uh can't think of the word right now, but it's very like primal essentially, right? Because it's very like what our ancestors used to do. We would go through long periods of time without eating. So I don't think that it's detrimental as long as you're not like completely fasting for like days at a time. But for women, what I've observed is that if you are consistently fasting for like 20 hours at a time, like each day, you are high stress. We will start seeing consequences in like your thyroid. You start storing body fat. You don't feel good. You can't think properly. You have the brain fog. And that timeline is going to look a little different for everyone. What is the best fasting weight management strategy for someone that has stress induced PCOS and trying to manage blood sugar, but being mindful of the stress on the body? Girl, I would say if you want to use fasting 12 hours, even if you push 18-hour fasting, it's going to be enough. The piece for managing blood sugar is really going to be managing that stress piece. You said that it's stress induced, so being mindful is going to be key. You can eat a perfect diet, like do all the protein, but if your stress is through the roof, it is not. It's when cortisol actually make tells our body to make sugar. That's why we that's how we get out of our like or survive our fight or flight response. So you could be eating a perfect diet and our body will convert that protein into carbohydrates if you cannot get that stress under control. Um, that could also be another webinar, possibly, but things that you could do for your stress is making sure that, like getting sunlight first thing in the morning rather than looking at your phone. That helps us set our circadian rhythm. Going to bed without a screen, without getting trapped in our like Instagram feed. Um, Being mindful, like, setting aside time. Some certain supplements can be helpful, like reishi or ashwagandha can really be helpful in supporting our adrenals as well. So I would say for that question, the fasting isn't the answer, but it's that stress piece. All right, perfect. I think that was the last one that we had. Again, please do not forget to join our communities, leave us a Trust Pilot review. We read everything. You guys always come with such great questions. I am, you know, I'm, it gets my day going every time I jump on a webinar here. So please leave us questions in our community. We are more than happy to hear from you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.